Welcome to Scrutiny service meeting on the 8th of June. So, any apologies, Matt?
None, Chair.
Right. Declaration of interest. Members are reminded of the personal responsibility to declare any personal and privileged interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda in accordance with the Provision Act of the Local Government. So we got A and B, that's all right. Number 3 is the forward work programme. That's page 3 to 16. Okay. Everybody read the work programme? Members? Happy?
Yeah.
What we left gaps in here for one reason, because we got the cabinet members coming report forward plan as well to be fitted in later in the month. So that's the gaps, and also if something comes up through the committees that we got to discuss an item, we can fit it in easy. Gareth, round it up.
Thank you, Bill. Just one question. Is there any chance we've got the update on budget? I think in October, that's a 6-month budget, isn't it?
Yeah.
Could we have a short just update in perhaps one of the meetings before that?
Yeah, I'm going to problem. We can fit it in. We can fit
on
it
the
in.
First, not a major report, just an update of the first quarter.
Yeah. Speaker Lee, all right with that? You're telling me, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I am here. Yeah, no problem with that, as long as I know, you know, the timeline you want the update for, because obviously I'm conscious there'll be a council report at some point in the next month or so for year end. So as long as I know the period you want, then I can do something.
Basically, I think October will take the 2 quarters, Lisa, wouldn't it? Half year.
Yeah, it'd probably be, probably on about month 7 then, so.
Yeah, so have an idea of something before then, you know, in the next meeting, not a full report, but just an update on where we are more or less overall.
What about July? Just before
You want that?
Yeah, a bit of best. Gareth?
Yeah, that'd be okay. Or September, Lisa.
Right. Okay, so everybody happy with the forward work programme?
Yeah.
Well, and Gareth, we fit that in now, right? I think we go for July, is it? Because if we have a report in October, and you're on MIPCA.
Yeah, that's fine, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, Councillor Smith, can I just clarify? So am I doing a written report, short written report, or do you want it a verbal report?
No, just, as far as I'm concerned, Lisa, an overall verbal report will suit me, but I don't know what other members think.
I am happy with that because we'll have a big one in October, won't we?
Yeah.
And we're looking well for the finance anyway. We're not struggling at the moment till next year.
Okay, so I'll just do a short updated position then where we're at the end of Q1.
Yeah, that's okay, Lisa. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Then we got item 4 in support and change. Lisa Sewers, I believe, or is Tara?
No, Tara ain't taking that report, it's hers, I think.
Mr. Smith, I want to come to yeah, it should change. Tara, yeah.
Afternoon, Chair. You okay?
Yeah, great. Okay.
So just to take members then through the support and change report, members will be aware that under Children's Services Strategy, we have 6 key building blocks to success, and our support and change element of that business block looks at ensuring that we're making the right decisions at the right time for our young people. Underneath that, members will have seen from today's report that there's been a considerable amount of work undertaken within our support and change team, both in terms of direct interventions to families and in terms of the support that it gives the main case carrying teams within the service. Underneath the support and change team, there's 3 main arms. So there's our assessment and intervention element that offers assessment and intensive intervention to support children safely remaining within the care of their family where safe to do so. There's our outreach service that operates 7 days a week, 365 days a year from 8:30 in the morning until 9 p.m. at night. And there's our family time service that primarily operates contact for our children who are looked after and supports plans for children to return back to their family home. Members will be aware that previously there was discussions in during 2019-2020 in respect of the reconfiguration of our IFST offer, and underneath that, that's where our assessment team was developed. I suppose there were some queries regionally about whether that was the most effective use of our finances, and we decided to reconfigure. Last year was our first full year operating underneath our new structure, and I'm sure members would agree that there's been some clear successes. However, I do think it's important to remember that within a COVID context, that's meant that we haven't had the optimum modes of delivery that we would have liked in terms of the level of face-to-face contact. And we'd also started undertaking family group conferencing to allow families to be at the centre of decision making and come up with solutions themselves with minimal intervention from services. And once again, that hadn't been delivered in the way that we had hoped, but has seen some really clear successes. You'll note from the report presented to today's committee that I just want to highlight some of the stats actually that have been brought forward. So in terms of the support and change assessment team, they've accepted 79 referrals over the last year. Of those 4 referrals with support as concluded, 79% of interventions were closed as successful package of support. I suppose considering if I was a committee member, what I may consider in terms of that is what happens with the additional 21%. However, what I want to highlight is that these are the most complex families that sit within our service, and comparatively, when we look at other services of this nature, the success rate, it is reasonably high compared to other models that are being delivered across Wales. In terms then of the outreach team, over the year you'll see that they've provided 148 packages of support, and they've undertaken 527 hours of unplanned crisis work in addition to their day-to-day delivery and support that they provide families in the evening. What I would just like to alert today's committee to is that that team has been exceptionally busy already in this financial year, and over one weekend we did need to facilitate 102 hours of support alone as a consequence of increases in complexity across the service. In terms of the family time team, that's clearly been rebranded over the last year. It used to be our contact service, but we want the focus to be on quality family time, and because parents whose children may not reside in their care, their families still deserve to have the same opportunities to engage in family activities that any other family would have. And there's been significant work over the last year about how we make contact more family friendly and allow young people to engage in activities that are part of normal family life. However, within a COVID context, that is considered that that service really had to be stripped down during different peaks in the pandemic, and they're currently focusing on recovery, with us looking at how we increase contact safely back to more of a business as usual model. There's been key pieces of work that have been undertaken within that service this year. Committee will be aware that I've previously reported on the placement with parents pod that was successful in reducing our placement with parents numbers. In addition to that, they've undertaken work in terms of our pre-birth pilot, which has been successful, and that will now be delivered as a model within the service of how we support parents and new babies. What I would like to say in terms of nurseries is the model and approach that we take into that is slightly different to some other local authorities in terms of we have no fixed criteria, because we want to ensure that we give all parents the opportunity to engage in that service where a pre-birth assessment is warranted within statutory services. In addition, moving forward this year, we've developed a parental advocacy pilot, and we're very much looking forward to seeing the outcomes that that can support us with. You'll note from the report that the support and change team is considered to be really fundamental to the service model and how we've reduced the rate of children becoming looked after over the last year, and additionally how we've safely reduced children being accommodated as children looked after within Merthyr. I'm not sure whether there's any questions that committee may have for me.
Oh, Carlos, very good. Right. Any members' questions only? I mean, comments later. Any questions? The ones up. Jack?
Chair. Thank you, Bill. Taryn, it's just a quick one, to be honest, and this one could be asked on the next report as well. But just because you've mentioned it there, you've reduced the numbers of children looked after over the last 12 months. I don't. That is what you said?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. I just wondered, have you seen the reports today? To be honest, it's from the alarm over growing numbers of children in care in Wales, and it's where it says that Wales now has the highest proportion of children in the UK being cared for by the state. Prompted one expert to raise concerns. I think obviously then if you're reducing numbers, then we're going against the trend, which you've got to be congratulated for, to be honest, because it does say that a lot of these a child in some areas is 5 times more likely to be in care than a child in another place. Some of that may be down to deprivation, but a lot seems to be also about the way some local authorities practice. So I got to say hats off to you guys for being able to do that. My question then is, I'll get round to it, is how many children currently are looked after? I did see in the next report that it's at the end, 22nd of March, it was just under 200.
So we finished last financial year with 193 children looked after by the local authority. As of today, there's 194. There are a number of children who require to be looked after by the local authority, so I would anticipate over the next month or so that number to increase slightly. Equally, we have a number of children who are placed before the court to revoke orders. So I think for us, Councillor, there is about having that balance of the children who need to come in are the right children who need to be kept safe by the local authority, but also making sure that we are maximising opportunities when work has been undertaken for children to return back into their family unit. And I think there's been clear changes and learning in our practice. We've really been a service over the last 3 years, most definitely. This be very open to reflection and challenging ourselves, and I feel very confident that the service model is moving in the right direction for the families of Merthyr.
Okay, lovely. Just one other question, Taryn. It's the percentage of children looked after in Wales is on average 1.14%, and in England then it's 0.67%, which is nearly half. What is the percentage with I don't know the figures of how many children are in Merthyr, but if we've got say 200 looked after, what kind of percentage is that in regards to population?
So in terms of percentage of population, that isn't a figure that I would be able just to give you, but more than happy to circulate that. What I would say is to be transparent with committee is in Merthyr, we do have a very high ratio of children looked after. As you spoke of earlier, deprivation is a significant factor in that. But we do have the second highest population of children looked after in Wales, and for some time, historically, it's been higher than that. But I suppose in terms of that changing ways of working and being responsive to need, I feel that we're moving in the right direction. This is the first time that we've had a decline in our children looked after numbers for over 5 years.
And you've got to be commended for that, to be honest. You know, it's even if our figures are high, but if you could get those figures for us in relation to the population, that'd be great. But just one other thing, we were on an education workshop a little bit earlier, and a social services spokesman today said that a lack of improvement in our education system, combined with a failure to lift our most desperate communities out of poverty, has created an uneven playing field where far too many children are left behind, never to realise their full potential. So you're picking up the pieces, but it's a lot of other agencies out there, like our education departments and Welsh government, the UK government. You know, it's to take these the communities out of poverty. So it's and you're picking up the pieces.
Yeah, and I thank you for that observation, because I think it's really important to highlight that often there's questions around children's services and around children looked after reduction. And whilst we are clearly a very important part of that puzzle, prevention, education and various other services are very fundamental, and because from a children's services perspective they've met the threshold for statutory intervention when they become known to us. So I think there's lots of forward work that we can do to reduce that even further.
Lovely, thank you, Taryn. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, then, Chanel.
Thank you. Just 2 questions from me. Item 3.7, it talks about the majority of families referred into the support and change team are affected by domestic abuse, parental substance misuse or parental mental health. And that takes up 70% of the referrals. I was just interested in what the remaining 30% of those referrals would be around, focused on.
So primarily they would be around children being beyond parental control, and there's a significant level of referrals within the system that will fall under that heading.
Right, okay, fab, that's great, thank you. And my other one is 5.6. Let me just pull it up. 5.6 to 5.8 talks about the outreach team within the Support and Change service. And I can see that you've got 6 outreach workers. Can you just elaborate on the work of the outreach team for me though, because I'm not up to date with what they offer and how you refer into that sort of part of the service, please.
Yeah, so the outreach service and any part of Support and Change is through a direct referral from one of the social work carrying teams, because it is for our highest tier of intervention. That service really is very dynamic and bespoke in the way that it can work with families. So part of their work is around delivering one-to-one intervention. So that might be around one-to-one work with young people, one-to-one work on parenting support with parents. It could be working with the assessment team to deliver elements of the assessment work that they need delivered out of hours and over weekends. Additionally, they undertake interventions in the evening with families, so that could be around supporting meal times, going to make sure that people of concern are in the household and that children are okay, and put in bespoke packages of work in the evenings. Additionally, they respond to crisis intervention, and that really is something that we see an increase very much in that service. So they are working very closely with our foster carers currently to manage or support children within foster care placements when things become particularly difficult, to reduce the likelihood of breakdown. Equally, they provide wraparound support within family homes, where they may be in the family home for part of the weekend, or they may take a child and parent outside of the family home to engage in an activity, just so that they can have some quality family time, but with the support of a practitioner there. So actually that's a very positive experience, and families may not feel that they can do that independently.
Okay, so it's like a additionality really to the Support and Change team to have more flexibility around support for families.
Yeah, and it's very fluid by design. What I will say is that we've just updated all of our leaflets for that service, and I'm more than happy to circulate with committee when they come back from reprographics.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, Tara, on the comments Charles, you make for fostering, are we got extra fostering people in now to support? Are we taking this Support and Change forward?
Sorry, Councillor Smith, do you mean have we increased the level of support that we have for foster carers?
We've got to increase it to keep the numbers low. So are we going to extra fostering people in to support our case?
So we're very much looking at that, a number of approaches. So the family centre are quite fundamental to that in terms of that wraparound support, to make sure that the foster carers that we have are well supported and there's a reduced likelihood of a breakdown. Equally, there's a regional partnership that's looking at how we recruit additional foster carers for Merthyr. That's recently been reconfigured to include Bridgend, but it will be coming to committee as a report later in the year, is my understanding from the forward work plan.
Okay, thank you very much. Any more questions, Gareth?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Taryn. My question is very similar to Declan's, but in the press last week, there was much publicity over the fact there's been a reduction in child protection orders in Wales, 20%, I think it says. How confident do you feel, or as an authority, do we feel that children haven't been missed?
I think, Councillor Richards, that's always a concern, particularly in a pandemic, when you consider that one of our main referral sources is education, and education haven't been functioning understandably, but as they previously would in other years. What I can say is that young people who are coming to our attention are having a service delivered to them, and we've looked at how we reach out more. So as part of that, we've looked at our early help hub, and we've seen a 44% increase actually in self-referrals into that early help hub, and which is something actually that is extremely positive for Merthyr and definitely exceeds our ambition of the level of self-referrals that we would see into that hub. So I think to try and mitigate that risk, and although we can't completely, we've tried other means to try and increase referral sources into the service.
Yeah, thanks, Taryn. That's fine. Thanks. The other question was on paragraph 512. I think there's percentages in there of 56% satisfactory outcomes.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got nothing to measure that against. What's your feeling generally on that? Sort of, I know it's over 50%, but obviously there's 44% when it wasn't successful, I'm assuming. So what's the general feeling on those statistics, really, please?
I think in terms of the statistics, we've mapped them against regional statistics for IST teams, and Merthyr compares very positively in that dimension, and has really reinforced that our reconfiguration the year before last was the right decision for Merthyr. I think for us it's about that sense check of, are we confident that those are children that wouldn't have had positive outcomes had there been an intervention? And actually, yeah, we are confident that that intervention has added quality and assurance to that young person's life. But I suppose in terms of the team, it's been reconfigured, so it's very much a baseline for us to map future years against as well.
Yeah. My final one then, Taryn, is on paragraph 513. It's regarding the pilot scheme of parental advocacy. Just inquiring, who have we appointed? Is it an external, obviously, organisation?
Yes, so Trust Gunnell are going to deliver that pilot for Merthyr, and we've got a baseline group and a group of parents that will be offering parental advocacy to, just to map the changes in those outcomes, and actually how much more parents felt engaged by the service by having the support of parental advocacy, and then we'll see whether that's something that will be beneficial to carry forward as a standard offer.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Okay, got any other questions? Any comments for this? Can I say I had to read this twice, right? Not for me to understand it, how much work I put into it. Because if you just read it once and then put it down, but if you read it twice, you see how much dedication I've gone into it, and to reports. And I know we disposed the Sporting Change last year. Was it last year we would bring it in and discuss it? What a massive change and for the service to give it to the public again. I can't believe it. I think, especially with the coronavirus 19 in as well, nothing working tidy. I think you've done a tremendous job.
Well, thank you very much, Councillor.
I think the community should support that. The other one I want to bring up is additional learning needs. With some you mentioned about some of the children got problems with their parents. How do we work with education on that as a report there then? Because I was in a governor's meeting last night, and they reckon it'd be 20% of the school are under learning. And if they got 20% of the children, same as their parents. So overall, and that's an age group. If that age group are going to go to comprehensive school, they take it with them, don't they? Unless we can change it, and that's going to be very hard for social services to do on education. So how can we get a bubble and work together on that?
And just to share that within the last 2 months, Children's Services and Education have pulled together a working together work stream, where there's an opportunity for us to have conversations actually to see how we unpick some of these tricky areas that we both need to work together really well on to be able to target in the best way for our young people. So that work stream is ongoing currently. There is new ALN legislation that is due to come in that I think that the council have worked very hard to be very well placed for. In addition to that, we're looking at a number of pilot programmes with education, and we will update committee further actually when we have the basis for those pilots, and we can discuss what outcomes we're hoping to achieve by them, and that would come then as an additional report.
Great. Any comments from you? Shrel?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so my comment is that, you know, we must continue to support our families in Merthyr Tydfil as best as we possibly can, and make sure that we've got the resources and investment in children's services that's needed. With Merthyr Tydfil having the second highest rates of children looked after in Wales, it is an obvious concern to us all. However, to learn that we've reduced the children looked after numbers for the first time in 5 years, that must be recognised and acknowledged, and thanks given to the staff who are driving that change across the service area. I'm also really delighted to see in item 5.5 the development of a pre-birth pathway that was made in August 2020. Aimed at identifying unborn children at risk of coming into care at the earliest possible point, because this is something that I've been asking for 3 years, saying, you know, early intervention and prevention is the critical point. And it's really great to see, you know, these pre-birth pathways now embedded within the service. And I would like to, you know, it'd be interesting to see in a few months' time the 17 families that have been referred in, as that stopped the progression that would have traditionally happened into children's services had that support not been provided. So I think, you know, we're certainly on the right path, but I definitely still think that the investment has got to be at the front door, and echo exactly what my fellow councillors Gareth Richards and Declan were saying earlier, about making sure that, you know, that investment is right and that we've got to meet the needs of these children. And if that's not done as a whole of a county borough, not just through social services, we're never going to achieve it, because it needs support in the family, the community, and through schools to be able to achieve what we want and reduce those numbers of children looked after in Merthyr Tydfil. Thank you.
Thanks, Shrel. Thanks for that. All right, Debbie, happy? Gareth, thank you very much. Can you tell the staff the Scrutiny Committee are overjoyed with the work they've done? I think it's tremendous, and I mean that.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Okay, we'll go back on the agenda now, and we got social services recovery, as Lisa, I believe, number 5.
Yeah, it's me. Okay, so I'll just quickly introduce the report, and then I'm happy to answer any questions on any of the detail in it. So Scrutiny requested information about the Recovery, Transformation and Improvement Plan and the current position with regards to the overall plan. As you're aware, the last year has been well, madness really in the last year with COVID-19, and it's had a major impact on health and social care and the people's lives within Merthyr, and obviously continues to be part of our day-to-day work. Section 4 of the report outlines the 3 areas of the plan. So what the area is to look at recovery. So obviously we need to be thinking about the pandemic and how we recover from that, and that's something that we are now sort of concentrating on. The second part of the plan is resources and service improvement. And then the third part of the plan is the resilience and sustainability. So obviously you're aware from budget discussions we've had that there's been real pressures on social care over the last couple of years, certainly through CLAR budget. So that's something that we've looked at the plan for areas that we need to improve. And from Taryn's report, you'll see we've already started making some improvements in areas around, you know, our looked after figures and the improvement in the service to children's services. This next section is outlining where we were. So that's obviously focusing on safeguarding has always been a priority. So regardless of the pandemic, then that still remained #1 priority, and we've, you know, responded very quickly to any adult or children referrals, and that's continued throughout the pandemic. The regional work was ceased for a significant period due to the pandemic. I mean, it continued in the sense that we were still working with our partners, but the focus was very much on, you know, how we were dealing with the pandemic. And we reintroduced the regional and transformation agenda as it was pre-COVID in about September last year, and that's sort of moved at pace now moving forward. Welsh Government supported the local authorities with hardship funding, which was welcomed and obviously has helped us keep afloat and kept a lot of care homes in business. And staff, we lost a lot of staff throughout the last year with regards to having to isolate periods of time, and you know, we've started to see sort of improvements in that. Section 6 outlines where we are now. So like I said, staff isolating is reducing. Whether or not we'll see an increase in that now, we've introduced testing twice a week with our social work teams, and obviously the new variant, and hopefully we won't see that increase, but you know, we'll obviously maintain our testing. Referrals, we've started to see an increase across adults and children's services, and the numbers are probably the same as pre-COVID. We haven't seen you know, a massive increase with different figures, but what we are seeing is complexity of cases. So whereas, for example, some adult services didn't want people to go into their homes because of fear, their needs might be greater now, so therefore we are picking up more complex issues moving forward, and similarly in children's services. 6.5 outlines a summary overview of the improvement plan, and then there are 4 projects that I've concentrated on within this report because they are the completed projects. So although we'll still continue them as business as usual, we've done all the things that we set out within the plan, and we've made lots of improvements, and that's outlined from 6.7 and 6.10 of the report. Section 7 looks at where we want to be. So as you'd expect, we want an excellent service for the people of Merthyr. We want to be resilient. We want to be able to continue to support the service as best we can. We want to continue to improve, and we want to continue to work with our partners. And then there's a couple of things then we need to do next. So we obviously need to revisit all aspects of the plan. There are some timelines in it that we have to readdress, because there are certain targets because of COVID that we've missed, but they've started to be built back in, and we've looked at replanning those areas. We need to continue to work with our partners, and obviously there's been lots of changes of personnel in health, and there's lots of work going on around transformation, so that's really important. We need to continue to support our staff. They're obviously our biggest asset. They've been fantastic throughout the last 18 months. Not that they aren't always, but this, you know, last year they've been exceptional. And it's been a really tough year, and there's been lots of changes to the way we work, so we need to make sure that their well-being is thought about. And also, as we talked about in the previous report, we need to focus our attention on early help and prevention, and that's really key to how we sort of improve services and improve outcomes for young people and adults as we move forward. So I'll open it up to any questions, and happy to answer.
Yeah, there's a question.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 2 questions for Lisa. Lisa, in relation to paragraph 4.3 on page 26, where you're talking about the effect on the budget of the children looked after. Now I know that this is a very volatile situation because of the high cost of the ones outside the authority. And there might be large swings in expenditure. So does the authority build a contingency element into the social services budget to sort of absorb those possible swings?
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. So every year we sit down with our accountants and we look at the medium-term financial plan, and we build into the budget where we think there are going to be areas of pressure. So, for example, the CLA budget, we we've been aware over the last couple of years there's been an increase in residential, and I know it's not a science, because I could say today we need 10 placements, but next week we could have a number of children who need to come into the system, and I might need 15 placements. And I haven't got a crystal ball, unfortunately. But we've got a fair idea about where we are with residential, so we budget for the numbers we think we need. If we think at the moment we've got 3 or 4 children on a watch list, if you like, then I would speak to Steve and say, this is a pressure. I think we're going to have 2 or 3 extra children residential, and then we look at whether we've got reserves for residential budget. So it is something we look at, and we regularly plan it. I meet with Stacey, the accountant, on a monthly basis, and we discuss where the areas of pressure are. At the end of the last financial year, when you'll see when the council report comes, unfortunately there was an underspend in adult services, so that helped to look at and balance the books, if you like, for children's services. But it is an area of pressure. We do look at it, and we do try to predict where the areas are going to be. So if we think there's going to be a rise in placements for adults with learning disabilities or for children with complex needs, we try to build that into the budget as we go through the year.
Thank you, Lisa, very much. My second question is on page 27, is paragraph 6.1, where you talk about dealing with extra demand in social services. And apart from the budgetary work that you do, which we all know is good, you say that a whole council approach is also required. Now, is this the same as saying that the council will need a strategic approach, or does it mean something different?
I suppose, yeah, it does mean that looking at a strategic approach, but it's also looking at that, certainly from point of view of social services, it's not just social services business. So, housing needs to be considered, homelessness needs to be thought about, the mental health of people in the community. So, our health board needs to be considered, education needs to be on board. So we all need to work together to make sure that we're providing the right services to the people of Merthyr. So it's not in isolation, I suppose, is what I mean. So you might have somebody who's got housing issues, but equally that might affect their mental health. They might not get their children to school, so that's going to have a long-term effect on those children. So it's about us working together and not working in isolation. And we've certainly looked at that now for the tackling poverty agenda. So we want to come up with, a strategy that we're all working together. So we're not doing things in silo. We're making sure that we're putting the right services at the right time into things.
Right, thank you, Lisa, very much. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, yeah. Can anybody else do a question, Lisa? Gareth?
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions, if that's okay.
Guy, remote.
Thank you, Bill. In relation to 5.4, I think we all understand why regional sort of working had to be curtailed, etc., in the last 12 months. How are things looking now to get back to some kind of normality, or is it still very fragile that we cannot move back towards that situation?
Right. So initially the regional meetings were disbanded for when like they were pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
And so safeguarding meetings continued throughout, but they different format. So you had a adult meeting and children's meeting, and they met all the relevant parties to make sure they were on that agenda, so that they always continue. With regards to sort of like the RPB and the Transformation Leadership Programme Board, they were halted for a little while because obviously everybody who was in those meetings was involved in other areas. So they were all reinstated about September last year, and the regional agenda is now back up and running, very much so.
Yeah.
So transformation, that is primarily looking at some of the changes in adult services and us having seamless services across social care and social health. So those are up and running. Those posts were appointed to and the evaluation of that is going on now. So there'll be further reports that come through in the next couple of months. The ICF agenda, so you would have had reports on that in the past around the integrated care fund and the funding. That funding always continue, but obviously we're back into the monitoring and discussing as to whether they're the right services, and again there'll be evaluation for that. And then there's other discussions now that, you know, some of the regional work has moved on because we're building on some of the good work that's been done through the pandemic, looking at what we can do together through integration. So some of those discussions are still ongoing, and there'll be further work coming out of that. And one of the other things is obviously we need to revisit the population needs assessment, because there will be changes to that now. But I think in some ways the pandemic has helped the regional agenda, because we've been having regular conversations, we've built better relationships, and there's better conversations going on at the moment. So I think quite positive, really. If anything's come out of it, that's been positive.
Excellent. Thanks, thanks, Lisa. That's very, very helpful. And paragraph 6.3 then, I think you state that in the home care section, there are currently no cases of COVID.
When I wrote the report,
right. I don't want to put them on the spot.
When I wrote the report, there were no cases within the care homes, touch wood. But whether that's changed since then, Angela's on the line, but whether she knows the update, I don't know.
Has that been for a while? That was my question, really. Or, you know, has it been for a number of weeks, the situation, or?
The numbers have certainly decreased. It was a recent thing. That was the first time in a long time that we've had no cases at all within the care home sector. But we have had odd 1 or 2 cases over the last couple of weeks. So we could never say, you know, that we were free of COVID, because we've had 1 or 2. And even things like where they've had the vaccine, they've been tested, then positive, and then a week later they tested negative, but you couldn't take a chance that you know, the test was wrong. They just had to isolate. So, you know, we'd obviously be mindful of that, and staff are being regularly tested.
And I think it's my final one then, on paragraph 6.4. There's 2 questions about the same paragraph but different areas. Any major issues on hospital discharges at the moment or not?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we may get the odd complaint about 1 or 2 cases, you know, where the choice issues, because that was disbanded for a while and halted because people were trying to get people out of hospital. But nothing, there's major concerns. We were having regular discharge meetings on a weekly basis on a Friday. But they've been cancelled now because health are quite happy with how things are going. But Angela can respond to that if there's anything else. She is there.
Yeah, sorry. From the hospital district, in terms of the care homes, Councillor Richards, we currently have 1 care home that has been cautiously under restrictions because someone had one of the more unusual symptoms. So just as caution, they're going to wait the whole home testing for that. But generally, the position in care homes and the number of people with COVID in there has significantly decreased. So it's a really positive picture from the care homes. In terms of the discharges, they seem to be roughly around the levels as we were pre-COVID. We have a few people waiting choices. We have a couple of people who are waiting a decision on court of protection, but those are generally the position we'd be in over a period of time. Our capacity within our care home sector is good, and the capacity within the home care sector again is good, and there is nothing holding up any discharges at this time.
If I can just, well, with the permission, just as it's appropriate, do a quick comment on that. From my experience, really, where social services are made aware of a discharge, social workers seem to be appointed very, very quickly. For social services.
In terms of the referrals that are coming through from the hospital, because they generally go through our front door, they're generally allocated on the day or within a day or 2 of us receiving the referral. So allocation is really quickly undertaken.
The problem sometimes arises, this is a question if I'm correct, is sometimes that social services haven't received a referral from the hospital, and families think that the patient are being discharged. That's a comment, that is. I don't want to answer that, but that's
Yeah.
my impression.
We occasionally get those situations, but where we have found that people have been discharged, there is availability for individuals to refer themselves, and they'll go through duty, and where it's been identified their issues, we do respond really quickly. Those people have gone home and find out they're unable to manage.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And within the same paragraph then, but it's on the childcare area then, there's reference to cases appear to be more complex. I suppose Taryn is the one to answer that. Is it, Taryn?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, Councillor Richards, that COVID has created really a perfect storm in terms of young people's mental health and well-being, and in terms of family resilience. And whilst I think the way that Mercer has continued to support families is impressive, there has been an impact on the way that we have delivered services. What we have found is that families who are coming in for assessment, or families that are currently within the service, the complexities are increasing. Children are not in school, therapies are not being engaged in the same way, and it is making things very difficult and cases far more complex than we have previously seen. I suppose that's important to put down on a backdrop that in recent years the complexity of cases has been increasing anyway.
Yeah. Thanks, Taryn. That's all my questions, Chair. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. Any other questions from members? So everybody happy with the plan that Lisa put into place to take it forward? Okay, thank you much, folks. Please, thank you. Appreciate it. So back to the agenda now, and it's number 6, scrutiny referral feedback. We've had nothing. Direction and evaluation of meeting. Everybody happy how the meeting went? We got to put on the forward work program, Gareth, the budget, and I was thinking we put in for 13th of July. That's before, sorry, Lise, you knocked yourself off. 30th of July, that's before the break, before the, because the next one's not till September, and then we'll have a budget line in October, won't we? Oh, Steve, so give us a rough idea where we're going. What do you think?
Yeah, for the July meeting.
Yeah, just scripted. Happy with that?
Yeah.
And number 8 then, I got no other business. So ladies, I'd like to thank you all. Please give me regards to all the staff. I think they've done a tremendous job. I'm not putting it like, you know, what you had to go through, and all the staff have to manage. Unbelievable. But I'd like to thank you all. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. See you next time round.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye now. Thank you. Thank you all.
Martha, thank you.